Judy, can you watch to see if we come on, or Dan, somebody that's on Facebook?
We are live.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks. So our council meeting is in session now. Would someone from council be willing to read the acknowledgement today?
I could do that.
Thank you, Councillor Pat.
We acknowledge that we are on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional meeting grounds, gathering place, and traveling route to the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux. We acknowledge all the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries.
Thank you very much. So call this meeting to order. Is there any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda?
Nothing from administration, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Would we be able to get a motion from someone on council to adopt the agenda as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor George.
Make a motion that we accept the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? Haven't heard none. Is anyone opposed to the motion? No, the motion is carried. So we move on to number 6, adopt minutes of November 18th meeting of council. You're looking for a motion to adopt those minutes.
I can make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
I think Councillor Judy had her hand up first.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes from the November 18th council meeting.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion? Okay, is anyone opposed to that motion? And the motion's carried. Looking for 6.2, adopt minutes of November 25th special meeting of council. Would somebody be willing to make that motion? Looks like Councillor Wayne got his hand up.
Make motion to adopt the minutes of November 25th, 2020 special meeting of council.
Thank you, Councillor Wayne. Any comments, questions, or concerns regarding that motion from that meeting? Okay, haven't heard none. Call for a vote. Anyone opposed to that motion? And the motion's carried. Thank you. Moving on to number 7, council priorities, information requests. So we'll start over here with Councillor Len. Any information requests? I trying to lead rips. I think he's reading lips. He's saying.
I have nothing at this time.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor George.
No request at this time.
Okay, Councillor Pat.
No request, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Dan.
Nothing for me at this time, thanks.
Okay, Councillor Wayne.
Nothing at this time.
And Councillor Judy.
I have nothing at this time. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I'm just wondering a couple of things. Usually around Christmas time, we get cards that we can hand out to residents that light up to recognize that. And I'm just wondering, maybe because of COVID, we have to do something different, or what administration's thoughts are on that.
You shouldn't be able to see me, but because I'm black.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Mr. Mayor, we had been talking about that. We'll get back to council soon about that, some options. The Alberta government is putting out some more directives this week and recommendations that right now it says that we can't hand anything to anybody.
Okay. Yeah, so maybe we can do virtual or something. Who knows?
Well, Mr. Mayor, we do have a contest going in town right now that you can submit your house for the contest on Facebook. So if council could promote that, and then we'll recognize the winners from that, at the very least.
Okay, thank you very much. And moving on to program requests, we'll go in reverse order. Councillor Judy.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Councillor Wayne.
Nothing at this time.
Councillor Dan.
Nothing for me, thank you.
Councillor Pat.
Nothing today, thanks.
Councillor George.
No request at this time.
And Councillor Len.
Nothing at this time.
Okay, so we move on to number 8, request for decisions 8.1 bylaw 17-2020.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Administration would like to see council approval on first reading of bylaw 17-2020. a bylaw to address procedural changes required as a result of the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Town Council give first reading to bylaw 17/2020, a bylaw that amends bylaw 11/2019 to address procedural changes required as a result of the response to COVID-19 pandemic. Council history. Council approved bylaw 11/2019, the meeting procedures bylaw on November 6, 2019. Strategic plan areas, a community that's educated on responsibilities and limitation of council administration. Other impacts, Municipal Government Act, Meeting Procedures Act, COVID-19 Suppression Regulation, and Municipal Government Act, Revised Statutes of Alberta 2000, Chapter M26, Section 603, Ministerial Regulations. In order to allow municipalities to adhere to the new restrictions related to the COVID-19 pandemic, the province passed the Meeting Procedures COVID-19 Suppression Regulation to modify the Municipal Government Act requirements for meetings in support of physical distancing recommendations from the Chief Medical Officer of Health. The regulation gives municipality greater flexibility for conducting meetings and public hearings electronically. The proposed bylaw sets out temporary procedure provisions for public hearings, public presentations, and open house presentations. These procedures provide that these types of presentations will be made by electronic means. This is necessary in order to comply with the recommended public health measures aimed at reducing the spread of COVID-19. These new measures will be in place as long as the COVID-related restrictions remain in force. Communication plan, the bylaw will be posted on the website and public hearing procedures will be advertised. We've attached the proposed bylaw, Municipal Government Act, Meeting Procedures Act, and the bylaw 11/2019 meeting procedure for your consideration, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So we're looking for a motion from council for this. Would somebody, Councillor Wayne?
The Town Council give first reading to bylaw 17/2020, a bylaw that amends bylaw 11/2019 to address procedural changes required as a result of the response to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you for that motion. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion?
I just have a question, Patty, about the, if and when we ever get out of this, is this rescinded or are we waiting for MGA? Are we waiting for the health ministers, AHS to, like, who are we following on this?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lee, that's a great question. So it's a provincial emergency. So we follow provincial regulations. And as soon as I would imagine they will encourage us to get back to in-person meetings as soon as they consider it safe. And we'll get another directive and we'll have to come back to council to make it rescind the bylaw and go back to business as usual. We hope very soon.
Oh, good, thanks, Patty.
Thank you for that. Any other questions from council? Okay, we'll call for a vote then. Anyone opposed to this motion? Hearing none, the motion's carried. We move on to 8.2, Council Remuneration Policy Gov-067.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Purpose of this report is to provide a guide for compensating Bruderheim Bruderheim elected officials for attending meetings and professional development opportunities and to respond to the need to participate in virtual meetings during the COVID-19 pandemic. We're making recommendation that Town Council approve the Council Remuneration Policy as amended on December 2nd, 2020 to include virtual meetings. Council previously approved the Council remunerations through bylaws listed below. February 1999, bylaw 99709, January 17, 2001, bylaw 725-2000, January 2nd council meeting, bylaw 730-2001, council meeting November 20th, 2002, bylaw 734-2002, council meeting April 5th, 2006, bylaw 756-2006, council member meeting December 19, 2007, bylaw 774-2007. Council remunerations were then put forward as a policy. Previous reviews and approvals of the council remuneration policy were completed on March 6, 2014, resolution 27-2014, April 2nd, 2014, and on August 16, 2017, resolution 143-2017. On January 19, 2018, council passed a resolution to have the policy revised to reflect COLA adjustments and to add $50 per month monthly remuneration for the deputy chief elected official. At the November 18, 2020 council meeting, a resolution was passed to direct administration to include reimbursement for council attending virtual meetings.
Thank you for that. So I'm looking. Oh, sorry, there's more.
That's okay. Strategic plan areas, open and transparent governance and administration, other impacts policy. The town of Bruderheim will periodically review and evaluate all bylaws and policies to ensure they are timely, effective, and appropriate. Legislative Municipal Government Act, RSA 2000, Chapter M26, Section 275.1. In order to allow municipalities to adhere to the new restrictions related to COVID-19 pandemic, the province passed the meeting procedure COVID-19 suppression regulation to modify the Municipal Government Act for meetings in support of physical distancing recommendations from the Chief Medical Officer of Health. Council requests that the administration review the council remuneration policy and incorporate virtual meetings in the revised policy. We've enclosed our proposed revised council remuneration policy for council's approval.
Thank you for that. That's quite a mouthful. So we're looking for a motion from council for the council remuneration policy.
I'll
Councillor
make
George.
that motion. I make a motion that town council approve the council remuneration policy as amended on December 2nd, 2020 to include virtual meetings.
Thank you for that, Councillor George. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion?
So, Mr. Mayor, sorry, just to clarify, we just added in-town meetings to virtual meetings because we felt that you're in town and whether you're in a building or in your house, you're still in town. So we thought it felt really comfortable going in there at the same spot.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion?
Not a concern with the motion, just the opening sentence there on to provide a guide for compensating Bruderheim chief electric officials. That would that's encompasses all councillors, right? Not just the CEO.
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lee, yeah, I deleted chief elected officials. I think of you all as my chiefs, so my apology. That's why I wrote that.
Okay. Just checking, Patty.
Keeping us on our toes, Pat. Thank you. Any other
right.
comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion? Councillor Judy? You're muted. there.
Apologize. So I'm just reading over, and when it gets to the end, I guess I need clarification on you're going through your council remuneration. So you've put everything down to the $25 a day for in-town meetings. And even if they were out of town, but you're still attending, they're still classified as in town. So like if you're at a meeting for a whole day, it's still the $25. Is that what I'm understanding?
If you're in a meeting all day virtually?
Yes.
Mhm.
Like
That's a really great,
conference or something, right?
yeah. I think that would go under training full day though, right? We could make an amendment to include virtual or in-person training. Would that work, Councillor Schuler?
Yeah, I'm just trying to
Yeah,
figure out where some
yeah.
of these things go. So when I'm filling out a form, I know what I'm filling out,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
That's
Mr. Mayor, through
how-
Councillor Schuler, we could add virtual training like we did to meetings, just add virtual, if that would be
Okay.
okay.
And would that be the same then for your meetings out of town, but they're now virtual? So like,
No, so if it's out of town or a virtual training full day, right? That would be
Yeah.
$150.
okay, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So
So
yeah,
you
add
okay?
that word virtual in there then when it means that,
Okay.
just so we know.
That was a great point though. Yeah, I forgot about that. You can take full day training, absolutely.
Well, full day training or like
Conference,
that Nels library board, like that's a 2.5 hour meeting it turned out to be.
But
Right.
your in-town meetings could be that as well, right? Yeah.
True. Yeah, I guess. Okay.
It's up to council. We can redefine it. It's open for discussion, absolutely.
Councillor George has his hand
Yeah.
up.
Why don't we align the remuneration as according to Schedule A council remuneration? And you got everything covered.
Well, that's kind of what I'm looking at. I'm just trying to understand it, George.
Well,
That's
you didn't mention anything for half days, or it was for a full day, or just how the
Yeah.
meeting was. That's what we should be doing, is looking at the remuneration schedule as per.
So George, the amendment that Councillor Schuler was looking for, are you okay with that to be a friendly amendment on your motion?
I'd like to have it worded as per Schedule A.
Mr. Mayor,
Administration.
we could bring that back then with the amendment if Councillor Campbell's not comfortable with the amendment.
Councillor George?
If we follow Schedule A, then we take out the gray areas.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, I think Councillor Schuler brought up a good point that if you're on the computer all day attending a conference or training session, your time's probably worth more than $25. When
No,
we were
no,
thinking-
I'm not, I have no,
Oh.
no qualms with that. I'm talking about if it's a half a day, you pay the 75. If it's 100, if it's a full day, you pay the 150, as the Schedule A states.
But Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, I think what she's trying to say is you could be on the computer all day, but not actually physically at the conference, right? And the
That's
way I have it worded, it would only be applicable for a meeting, like a
Yeah.
short, less than 3-hour meeting. Yeah. Mr. Mayor, why don't I just take it back and we'll bring it back next meeting? Make sure it's clear.
Okay, so we'll just rescind that motion then, George?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we just need to defeat the motion.
Sure. Yep. So anyone opposed to that motion?
Aye.
And the motion's defeated. So administration will bring that one back with a little bit of work on the rewording. Thank you very much. So we're moving on to 8.3, audit engagement. I just wanted to say thanks for bringing that councillor remuneration policy forward, and that's applicable certainly at this time. But moving on to the Metric Group LLP.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Administration like to present Metrics Group LLP terms of engagement to audit the financial statements of the town of Bruderheim for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020. The town council approved the Metrics Group LLP terms of engagement to audit the financial statements of the town of Bruderheim for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020. The town of Bruderheim commenced utilizing Metrics Group LLP as the firm that audits our financial statements in 2015. We receive annual terms of engagement letters for signature prior to the commencement of the annual financial audit. Legislatively, Municipal Government Act, RSA 2000, Chapter M26, Section 280 and 281. Council must appoint one or more auditors for municipality as noted in the Municipal Government Act, RSA 2000, Chapter M26, Section 280 and 281. Prior to the audit, the auditor prepares a letter stating the terms of engagement for approval. We've attached the Metrics Group engagement letter dated October 26, 2020 for council consideration, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So I'm looking for a motion to approve that audit engagement. I think Councillor Dan had his hand up first. No? Okay, then Councillor Pat.
I was just closing a laptop. I'm trying to
Okay.
bring up all my paperwork, but it's
You
not
had your hand up at the same
cooperating.
time.
I move that town council approve the Matrix Group LLP terms of engagement to audit the financial statements of the town of Bruderheim for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020.
Thank you for that motion, Councillor Pat. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council on that motion? Councillor Judy.
I have a question. So this Matrix Group, is that who audited us last year, or there been a name change there?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Schuler, they changed their name 2 years ago.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that. Okay, thanks.
Same group though.
Any other comments, questions, or concerns from council? To CAO Patty, this is pretty much a standard thing every year, right? So,
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, it's one of the things under the MJ that we have to do.
yep. Okay. If there's no other comments, questions, or concerns, I'll bring it to a vote. Anyone opposed to the motion for the audit engagement? Okay, hearing none, the motion is carried. And we move on to 8.4, Municipal Stimulus Program, MSP.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Purpose of this report is to provide council with the proposed funding allocations for the Municipal Operating Support Transfer, MOST acronym, grant funding. That town council direct administration to proceed with the proposed funding allocations for the Municipal Operating Support Transfer Program totaling $146,256. On October 8th, town administration received notice that the town of Bruderheim was eligible to receive up to $146,256 in grant funding to support municipal operations impacted by the COVID pandemic and actions taken in response to it. Through the most, the Government of Alberta and the Government of Canada providing funding to support municipalities which experience significant operating impacts due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Funding must be used for incremental operating costs incurred due to the COVID-19 response and restart, as well as other operating losses or deficits incurred as a result of COVID-19 impacts on revenues and operations. Municipalities may use the most funding for incremental costs due to COVID and restart. Such incremental operating costs could include costs such as personal protective equipment, communications, additional cleaning, supplemental staffing, and additional supports for vulnerable populations. Most funding may only be used for eligible operating expenses or operating losses or deficits incurred between April 1st, 2020 and March 31st, 2020. Any funds not used for eligible expenses incurred before March 31st, 2021 must be returned to the Government of Alberta. Strategic plan areas, using grant opportunities to fund unbudgeted expenses to lower the financial burden on our ratepayers. Continuing to look for opportunities to improve community wellness during a pandemic. Looking for funding opportunities to maintain infrastructure during a pandemic. And engaging in public discussions on the use of unbudgeted funding opportunities in the continuance of service delivery during a pandemic. Other impacts, municipal operating support transfer, most guidelines. This opportunity provides an unbudgeted revenue source for the community to upgrade or add much needed funding for operations. Ensuring that we carefully designate the funding that aligns with the program guidelines ensures our eligibility for funding disbursement. And we've enclosed the guidelines. Mr. Mayor, I'm just going to try. If you guys want to make the motions, I will try to share the.
Okay, so looking for someone to make that motion for the municipal stimulus program. Councillor Wayne had his hand up. Sorry, Dan. Councillor Wayne, did you?
The Town Council directs administration to proceed with proposed funding allocations for the municipal operating support transfer, most program totaling $146,256.
Thank you for that motion. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion? Councillor George has his hand up.
We have two line items, the lift station PLC and the radio link. They're quite large numbers, and I just for explanation, what was the need? How did they help the COVID situation?
If
Dennis,
I'm not mistaken, no, go ahead.
Dennis, do you want to take the lift station?
Mr. Mayor, through the Council Campbell, the lift station enables us.
There's something wrong with the audio for Dennis.
No audio?
Oh, there we go.
Now you're cooking.
Sorry about that. So the lift station enables us.
Cutting back out again.
How's that?
They're perfect.
I'll try this again. So the PLC upgrade enables us to remote operation. So we don't need to be at.
Seems to be fading out.
How's
So,
this?
That's good now.
Don't
Yeah,
move.
I'm not going to move.
Dennis, maybe turn your video off. Might help.
Evidently, that's why we need the Ethernet.
Yeah.
Can everybody hear me
No, it's fading again.
now?
Mr. Mayor, I'll give it a shot.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that, Dennis.
So, Councillor Campbell, your question was, why are we those big expenditures, those two big expenditure line items? So the lift station PLC, does everybody understand what that is to start with?
Also,
So-
logic control.
Chocolate bar for Councillor Campbell. So it's the last piece. Dennis just nodded if it's true. I think it's the last piece that we haven't been able to remotely access. As you know, Dennis has started us on everything being accessed through the internet so that our operators can look at home and monitor, get alarms at home. So we don't wait for things to happen and then it's too late. We can actually set values to let us know. And of course, with the pandemic, with staff taking turns working from home, and we've identified critical infrastructure that needs to be maintained on a daily basis. Being able to access this remotely is a large piece in preventing large-scale maintenance issues and tying it's the final piece to be able to access everything remotely. We figured that it was a great opportunity to ensure that all of our critical services can be delivered in the case of our staff being affected by the pandemic. The second piece was the remote towers radio connection. So this would enable all of our municipal buildings to be connected through the internet, and we'd have access to all our files at all buildings and have Wi-Fi in all buildings. So with the pandemic, we have people in multiple buildings wanting to access even meetings like this. We can all be in town, but in different buildings, but we were having to use personal devices because we don't have Wi-Fi accessibility. So we believe that connecting all our buildings and being able to be, and not during just a pandemic, just like at the arena, for instance, there's no connection to the Bruderheim drives to be able to access information. So they have to come over to the town office. So operationally, it's sort of slows down production. The town public workshop has to bounce through the internet 3 different ways, different softwares to be able to access the Bruderheim drive. A lot of times we lose connection. We upgrade forms, documents, stuff like that. And Dennis doesn't get that. It's a delayed. So then perhaps he's using the wrong things and then we get multiple storage items. So this has really all come to light from working from home, working at remote locations, not connecting as much as we used to. So I know that a lot of counselors know that a lot of our residents have asked for Wi-Fi in a lot of our buildings. So this is an opportunity to keep us connected. So yeah, that's the 2 big purchase items, Councillor Campbell.
And they're both operational now?
No, we haven't spent any of these dollars yet, Councillor Campbell, except for over $20,000 in supplies that council approved a reserve transfer for in the spring, if you remember. I asked for COVID funding, extra funding on top of the budget. So we wouldn't need to transfer that $20,000 if council approved the allocation of this funding.
Another question, will the PLC be compatible with the new system that we're putting in the lift station?
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell.
Question well answered.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this is very proactive, and this is grant dollars that we got from the province that we're spending, correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and everything has to be operating and it has to enhance services during a pandemic.
Yeah, thank you very much. Any other? Councillor Wayne has his hand up, and then Councillor Len.
You have under emergency management supplies, computers and stuff. Is that only use for those, for that situation, or is it used for everyday use?
So, Mr. Mayor, I'm sure that, like, as we've found here with the connectivity, with a lot of our not being able to use the iPad to access all of the council information, we feel that next year we should upgrade to laptops over iPads, and this will help, as we don't know how long we're going to be in this situation. So we're looking at some other option for elected officials to be able to work from home.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Len.
I really think we're in a gray area, reading this over and over again many times. We're eligible for their operating expenses or operating losses or deficits incurred. And that doesn't really say that go and purchase stuff, because it's really, we have a lot of issues within the community with far more greater than those issues, people's wages and making sure we get through this pandemic with other things. To me, if I read this, we're not following the guidelines at all.
I believe that there's specific guidelines from the province, and Patty has followed those to a T, and that's the items that were come up as high priority for the town from an operational standpoint to deal with COVID. Am I right, Pat?
Yes, and Mr. Mayor, that's a good question, Councillor Filardo. It is interpretation. So I don't go on interpretation. I deal with 1-800 municipal fair grants. And I proposed those 3 items, actually, the laptops to enable council to work from home. I talked about Wi-Fi in the buildings, being able to separate staff and operate without connecting. And I talked about, we identified critical services to our community, and sewer is definitely a critical service. And we want to make sure that we can remotely monitor these things if we can't daily do the checks. So I did phone municipal affairs to ask if those would qualify, and they approved that. So, and you're right, Councillor Filardo, there's many things we could use it for. We're just trying to make sure that nobody knows how long we're going to be in this situation. And we want to make sure that if our staff fall sick or our community, that we're able to keep going with critical services, which includes council and being able to connect with staff at home and in different buildings, and as well as maintaining our water and sewer systems.
Thank you for that, CAO Pat. I'm sure that you're on speed dial with those people over there with all the grants that we applied for. Thank you. Is there any other comments, questions, or concerns from council with this motion?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councillor Judy.
And actually probably not a question, more of a comment. Yeah, everyone thinks we're going to get out of this in the next year. I think we're going to be doing it for 2-3. If these numbers keep going up, we're going to be doing it for a while. And I think hopefully you've been looked at all those numbers precisely and included our fire hall in for specific reasons, because I think that's a huge, big asset. And the rest of these things are, definitely a great asset. I'm wondering, I guess we're only going a year into the budget. Hopefully by next year, there'll be something different, but good job, Patty. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Any other comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion? Okay, I'll call it to a vote. Is anyone opposed to this motion? Hearing none, the motion is carried. So we'll move on to 8.5, bylaw 18-2020-2021 fees and charges.
All right, I hope this stimulated everybody. Just before I start the report, I just want to let council know for the last 3 years, this has been on my wish list to attack this. And it was a very lengthy couple-month project. So really looking forward to this first reading to look at the changes we've made. I hope that the piece that I provided you with the changes, because I know that you can't compare one bylaw to the other because they look much different. So I thought we'd go through the new bylaw and we'll address any concerns page by page, if that's okay with Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
And so I'll just read off the report to council, and I'll ask my directors to join me. If you have questions specific to their areas, they'll be able to address those. So present the 2021 fees and charges for council for consideration. The council give first reading to bylaw 18-2020, a bylaw to impose the fees and charges for 2021. The town council provides a number of services to the residents of Bruderheim in an effort to enhance their quality of life. The fees for these services are established in the fees and charges bylaw and are updated annually to reflect increases in town costs while still providing a level of service at a fair and reasonable rate to residents. The fees and charges bylaw ensures that not only the residents of the town, but customers of the town are also contributing to the cost to provide town services. We want to continue to develop a plan for the future needs of the community. Continue to enhance and create new relationships with service groups by offering reduced rates for town services and nonprofit organizations. Ensure that community is aware of the fees and charges for services offered by the town. MGA Chapter M26, Section 8, powers under bylaws allows council to pass a bylaw for the establishment and collection of fees for services provided by the town. This past year, administration focused on reviews of our policies, bylaws, and our website. It became apparent that the current fees and charges Schedule A document was confusing and being interpreted differently by those viewing the information. The fees and charges Schedule A was revamped to align the charges with the department that they relate to clarify for staff, residents, and developers those charges that require GST added to the amount and those that do not require GST, to align the charges with the actual costs where needed, to add quantitative criteria, add a column for bylaw amendment dates as needed, and to realign the planning and development charges with our land use bylaw and Alberta government permitting processes. The fees and charges would come into effect on January 1st, 2021. Upon final reading, the bylaw will be placed on the town website and advertised on social media. We've attached bylaw 1820, 2021 fees and charges for council consideration, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So
I'm going to try to call this up. I'm not doing very good tonight. But...
So we'll wait with the motion. We'll just go through all the information first, right?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I have the old one. Mm-hmm. It's on my screen, but you guys can't see it.
Mm-hmm. Is that the document that we got a hard copy of, Pat, that
yes.
You're going through?
Yes.
Does everybody have a copy of that?
I think so, Mr. Everybody
Yeah.
should. Yeah,
Yes, I do.
I'm sorry. Okay, so if we go page 1, assessment and tax. So if we go tax recovery costs, they were prior at $35.50. So we've increased those to 100. This is aligned with the cost to register a tax recovery. So these are people that haven't paid their taxes. We've increased the tax search from $11.25 to $15. It's an administration cost. We get a request to reprint prior year assessments. So we're adding that as a new cost for $10.50. Tax notice to the Land Use Appeal Board, administrative cost of $30 we've added. And our appeal fees have been expanded to include value of property. As you know, the larger the property, the larger the cost for the appeal from a town administrative perspective. We hire contracted services, planners, engineers, lawyers. So just an opportunity to recover some of our costs.
So that's where that 2% comes in.
2%, Mr. Mayor.
Three.
Oh, that's the next one. Sorry.
Next page.
Oh, the accounts receivable penalty, is that where you are, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah. Yeah.
So all of our accounts receivable are charged at 2% interest. That's the same, it hasn't changed.
Okay.
Any questions on that first section?
That 2%, is that 2% per month or 2% per annum?
Sharon, is that, I think it's per month. There we go.
Yes, it's per month.
That should be stated then.
It is stated on our invoices that go out.
So you make mention of 30 days. So every 30 days, and it's another 2%, right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, moving to legislative services. The FOIP request used to be $60. We've lowered it 25. It's a regional average. And returned items, we just moved it down to $25 instead of 26. Subdivision Development Appeal Board, that is added the $500 that now, as you know, we've contracted Lamont County Subdivision Appeal Board, so it aligns with their fees and charges. Any questions on any of that?
Yeah, sorry, where are we?
Yeah, because the next page says assessment appeal fees, and it says legislative services.
Page 3.
Yeah. That's the one we have in our package.
Oh, we're doing the bottom part. Sorry. Okay, my bad.
Yeah, I moved to legislative services. There was nothing anybody said about assessment and appeal.
Gotcha.
Sorry, am I going too fast?
No.
So any questions on the change to FOIP or subdivision and appeal board fees?
I don't see where it says subdivision appeal.
Next page, Mr. Mayor, page 4.
Okay, so we skipped over photocopies?
Well, I'm only going over the changes. If council wants to ask a question other than the changes, feel free.
Yeah, on photocopies, color
Gotcha.
is a lot more expensive. Does that take into account color copies, or is that black and white?
Mr. Mayor, it's just photocopies now. We used to have it defined as black and white and color. Now we just charge color because, as you know, photocopiers make black out of color. So we just call it photocopies now.
Okay, thanks. Perfect.
Councillor Lecco, did you have a question?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay, moving on to infrastructure services. Councillor Campbell's favorite section. Manpower rate. I did a lot of research in the region, and most people have that they just charge. So again, this would be for emergencies. We have to be able to claim back. As in COVID, we did a separate journal entry for all our COVID related expenses. If we were to assist another municipality or one of our businesses, say we had an incredible storm that we're helping, we would have the opportunity to claim against insurance. So the regional agreement is most people are doing this salary grid, not just a, so then you don't, we used to have it before at like $60, $75, $80. Now we just charge out at time and a half. that salary grid of that operator or administrative person's rate. Does that make sense?
Yep.
We've had requests now, this is new, requested, so if somebody wants to change their driveway to a drop driveway while we're going by with the sidewalks, or they want to enhance something, we do that for residents, but we didn't have it in our fees and charges to charge them back. So we now have that in our fees and charges. And it's a great opportunity for our residents to get a better price while we're in town. So we'd like to continue to offer that service.
I have a question. The grass cutting service at the school. How much was it in our contract previous in the 2020 contract? Compared to what it could possibly be right now? Could it, because we do get some advantages from using the school, the town does.
Was
Yeah,
128?
Yeah, it was 128. It used to be a hectare. Now we're just doing per cutting. And because of COVID, we have not been able to resume chats with Elk Island schools. So if something changes, we would bring the fees and charges back, but nothing in our reciprocal use agreement has been signed off. So we will just leave that in there.
No, I just asked how much of a difference it could be. You know, if we say we cut it 5 times, is it going to be more money or is it going to be less money than what they were paying before?
Mr. Mayor, it'll be cheaper for Elk Island schools.
With this agreement?
Yes.
Okay.
Patty, I was just wondering, the transfer from parks to transportation for this this particular item? Last year it was in parks.
Oh, yes. It's not one of our parks. So it's a contracted service. That's why we put it there.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarification.
Yeah, as you notice, again, I'm trying to group things into our 3 directors' responsibilities. So infrastructure services, community services, and corporate services. So forward facing, inward facing, and infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. Right on.
We've also added tender application package for $30, which is clearly just the cost of printing. Those can be quite lengthy. Other permits, we've added a block party permit, and basically this is just to let us know that somebody's having a block party so we can go there and clean the street and advertise for them, and it's more of a heads up to assist them in their planning. And also the special roadway permit would be the cost of advertising, cleaning the street, making sure things are ready if somebody wanted to close down a street and like do a street hockey game or one of our nonprofits or something. And again, no, nonprofits don't pay, but they would still get a permit. They just wouldn't pay any fees. If there's no questions there, I'll move on to utilities. Okay, so starting at the top with water. Before our fees and charges, the fees and the permits were all mixed together. So now we've clearly defined permits and fees and extra costs so that they're clear when somebody's looking at hooking up to our services. So we have permit deposit, which was added for $2,500. This is damage to infrastructure. So in development, if somebody was to build or add something, they could dig up our road, our sidewalk. It's just a deposit. If there's no damage to any of our infrastructure, we would return that money. Subdivision development water, the same thing, $525. That's for water, while there would be unmetered water. So to make sure that we're recovering our costs. And then there's the construction completion certificate. We never had a cost in there for that. So that's when our engineer would do a walkabout, make sure they had everything in place, everything was correct, and we get charged that from the contracted engineer, so pass that on to the developer. Utility account application, there's a cost to process an application, $26. And construction water accounts, again, a deposit that would give back if there was no deposit, if they had paid all their bills in time. Hydrant water, so that would be an emergency if another municipality hooked directly to our hydrant. We could meter that water if they have special equipment for that. A utility bill reprint, $10.50. That's administration costs. If somebody was negligent and damaged one of our water meters, we would have the opportunity to charge $440 to replace that meter because we own the meters. And if they fail, then we replace them. But this is if somebody was completely negligent. As you know, the meter bench test, we increased that from 150 to 180. That's actual cost to the municipality when we have them bench tested. And again, the resident would get that money back if it turned out that the meter was not working. Damaged curb stop, that's neglect by a resident, digging up your driveway and damaging the curb stop even though you saw it there. Service reconnection, $79, cost for labor for us to turn somebody back on after they've been shut off. Transferring outstanding balances to taxes, $21 for admin. Any questions on any of those or what's currently in the fees and charges?
On your water connection, you got a fee of $100, and that includes the cost of the meter. And your damage meter costs $440. Doesn't
Yes.
jive.
Yes, I actually noticed that today. Thank you, Councillor Campbell. One of my staff noticed that I did make that should be $400. My apologies. That'll be corrected in the second reading. We just found that like an hour ago.
Thank you for
Sorry about that. I
correction,
forgot to mention it.
So I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
So if the resident knows that he damaged the sidewalk or whatever, but he goes ahead and fixes it according to your guidelines or whatever they call it, would you still charge him this fee for damage?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Schuler.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really be excited about somebody fixing one of our infrastructure, but if Dennis was on site and approved that that contractor or how it was done, yes, we wouldn't charge for somebody that would fix it on their own. But of course, Dennis would have to be involved in all of that to make sure that it's up to our standards.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking of one of our neighbors up here this year that when they were digging, they damaged the sidewalk and then they replaced it.
Yeah,
sure
there was no charge to him. He did an excellent job. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Not everybody has that capacity though. So Dennis would have to approve, and that person did call us and say they accidentally damaged it. And Dennis worked with that person to get it rectified, and they did a great job. So.
Okay, good.
Great, good questions. Looks like we can move on to the next section.
Sewer. Sewer connection permit. We're increasing that from 100 to 350 as that's contractor costs. Oh, sorry, Councillor Falardo.
Go ahead, Councillor.
I look at all the sewer costs. Is that cost only reflect if it's on their property? But if it's a sewer backup or sewer is on the town's property, there should be no cost to the citizen. Am I correct?
So the sewer backup, where's, okay, let me just look here.
See, when you've got emergency sewer backup, if the boulevards where the trees do affect the sewage, and it backs up in the fellow's basement, he already has a tremendous cost to clean that up. And if it's the town's responsibility, if it's a town situation, there should be no cost. Am I correct?
I think Dennis is trying to talk, Mr. Mayor. We'll
ahead,
try
Dennis.
again.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Toledo, can you hear me?
No, I can't hear you, Dennis.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so while we're on permits right now, Councilor Toledo, and what you're talking about
It fades
Dennis,
out after a couple
Dennis,
seconds.
maybe you could text me. That might work. But Councillor Falero, you're correct. If it's a town issue, then we cover the cost. If it goes on a private property, it's a resident's cost.
Hey,
Patty?
sorry to interrupt. If Dennis could maybe just call in, because there's that number for the
Oh,
for
yeah.
the Zoom meeting. He can just call in to the Zoom meeting.
Dennis, did you hear that? Can you use your phone to dial in that number? Poor guy.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Councillor Florida, does that answer your question, or you still need more
Yeah,
clarity?
because I've had sewer issues in the past
Yeah.
and had to reline my line, and I didn't have to do anything. Because it was because of the boulevard and the trees.
Hey, Dennis.
Gotta unmute yourself, Dennis.
No, but you have to dial in through Zoom for them, dear. It's okay. We got it.
So it sounds like we can move on to.
Missed appointments, $210. Is there any leeway in that there, or is it cut and dry?
So, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Thomas, I just wanted to clarify, these are for permits, right? If there was actual work to be done, then it would become an hourly rate.
I'm just wondering about the consumption rate of the water.
Yeah, we'll get there, Councillor Lee.
Okay.
If we can just work through page by page here. Okay. Are you okay, Councillor Flatter? I don't want to not answer
Yeah,
your
I just
question.
want to make
Okay.
sure that's very clear that there's
Yeah,
no cost occurred to the citizens if it is town situation.
yeah, absolutely. That's correct.
Thank you. Any other
Okay.
questions on this page?
Okay, moving to solid waste. Oh, next is utility. So I didn't,
Utility fees.
yeah, utility fees. Mr. Mayor, I didn't put that in the spreadsheet, of course, because it's quite extensive. So just as a overarching comment, we've changed our utility fees and charges to reflect actual usage to the residents. So this is to make it fair. Right now, the users that are using a lot of water is being subsidized by people that don't, because we have a flat rate that covers our costs as a community. And so this would be more reflective, like your energy charges for your gas or your electric would be aligned with that, that if you use it, you pay for it. And people that use less will pay less. We want to promote environmentally best practices by reducing consumption. And I know that with the flat rate of 14 cubes, some people think that if you use it, you might as well, or if you're paying for it, you might as well use it. So we want to do our part to ensure that we're using our potable water wisely. The monthly reads every month will ensure that people don't see large bills on the second month if they typically have overages. And so I did a little bit of number crunching, and just to give you an idea, also we'll catch water leaks faster if we're reading monthly as well. So if a resident is away or doesn't know that the basement toilet, it's amazing how many people go to their basement for a month or two and notice that the toilet's running. So we'll be able to catch those a lot faster. So an average user would be a single person. I may or may not have pulled up a single councillor's water bill. And they use about 5 to 7 cubic meters in our community. They will actually see a savings of about $25 a month. For a user that uses 10 cubic meters, they'll stay about the same, and a user that use over 10 will see an increase depending on what they're using. One of our residents typically is one of the higher ones, uses 41 cubes a month. They will see about $150 increase. 41 cubes is extremely high. The average, if you do our whole average in town, it's about 10.5 cubic meters per resident. And that takes in consideration low and high. So somebody, can you imagine, is using 45 is 4 times the average person's use. And the rest of the residents that use little to no water are paying for that. We're also increasing our sewer rates to match water usage. So as you can imagine, the more water you use, the more goes down the sewer and the more impact on the use of the sewer. As you know, we need new force main going from Brookside back to our system. And the sewer lines are just as important as our water. As you can imagine, the sewer backing up into people's houses, the maintenance there is just as important as our water lines. And so residents have an opportunity here to lower their bills by lowering their usage. So we believe that this is fair and equitable. We've gone across the region to see what other communities similar size are charging, and on the John Pachuca Water Commission, to clarify, because those costs are relative to our work. And please remember that places like Fort Saskatchewan and Vegreville, the larger communities, and Strathcona County, they have in-service hydrovac trucks, those sorts of things. So they're able not to do the repairs. We have to contract that out. So we have to build that into our water costs as well. So yeah, so open to questions, comments. Just remember, senior rates only apply to refuse, not to water.
Councillor Len and Councillor Wayne.
Well, I have really, how many people do we have Do you have any idea how many people are using large portions of the water? And did you ever research why they're using it? Because you got water leaks, water problems, or stuff like this. I think some of this stuff has to be addressed before you hit someone with a monstrous bill, because they might not even be aware of their issues. So has that been addressed? And the next thing is, at this, people who are using the 40 cubes a month, I don't even know if they understand the ramifications of all this. And this could bring somewhat of an uproar to our community. I don't know how many people this will affect. That's what my really concern is. And right now, we don't have an uproar with the water situation, but I do understand the waste of water. And usually when they that kind of waste, they got a water system problem, because I can't see you bath 17 times a day. So that should be researched prior to this to make sure that those individuals who are using large portions of water are well aware of it, and that it's going to go up. So they have to correct their system. Maybe they got a leak in the house, or bad toilets, bad, whatever the case may be. But we have to give them a heads up. That's what I'm saying.
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Falardo, we do have a full communication plan, and I can tell you that we have reached out to those large users to ensure that they are indeed using that much water every month, and they are, and they have no concerns.
Thank you for that. Councillor Wayne was next, and then I think Councillor Pat.
On here, it doesn't say anywhere about the water co-op. Has that been moved? Unless I missed it.
No, you haven't, Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lecco. That will be a separate contract that comes to council as they're a separate entity.
Okay. And on the previous, or on the existing one right now, on the fees and charges, it talks about trailer park. What do you mean by that? It's
Mr.
not
Mayor,
on the new one, so I'm just curious.
Yeah, so trailers and multi-dwellings, duplexes, townhouses are all considered residential. And that is a regional, they don't, modular homes, trailers, all are considered residential, as our apartments are also considered residential. As you council knows, I came to council a while ago about the Oasis and changed theirs as a usage as well, right? That's how they're paying, and they're considered as residential as well.
So they're going to be paying the same rate as any household then, is that correct?
Their base rate, they'll be paying the same for consumption, but their base rate will be lower as their 1 meter. So if you look there, it says water individual metered account and multi-use residential common meter.
Okay, yeah.
So they pay per unit per month. So they have over 60 units, right? So we wouldn't be charging $19.64 per unit per month. We are charging $4.64 per unit per month because they're on a common meter.
Oh, so it's just one line going in, or 1 meter
Right.
going in? Oh,
Right.
okay, okay.
Yeah. So that's what common meter means. They're not individually metered. Again, this is a learning opportunity here. All we can do is we don't really know what people are going to use or not use. So we may have to revisit mid-year and say we may decrease or increase, right? There's no way to tell. We can only go on averages and what other communities are charging and hopefully come out the other end.
So is that going to, that's an increase for, say, the trailer park, is that correct?
No, it shouldn't be. If the residential rate, people are using water, right? It depends who's living in the house and.
Just so I understand, because I'm not on this. So multi-unit residential, or sorry, where am I? The common meter is $360 per month, right?
360, yes.
Is that for a trailer?
That's sewer. That's sewer rates.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It's $4.64.
That's the flat
Right.
rate. That's not the consumption rate. That's the flat rate. So that's
That's
for
the old-
operational. That's operational and maintenance costs. We used to have a flat fee that included the operational maintenance, and now we've taken that out of consumption. We used to have consumption and operation and maintenance costs together as a flat fee, and now we've separated them into consumption as actual use and a flat fee. They're separated and clear to residents what they're paying for.
Okay, that makes sense because it's a little lower per.
Mhm.
Okay.
But we ran multiple bills and just tried different residents throughout the community to see. And so generally, if somebody's using, again, 4 to 6, which is an average, and that's what my daughter uses, that's what most people living alone use, is 4 to 6 cubes, they'll see a reduction of about $25. People that are in around 10 will see about the same bill, and people that use more. So again, people that were using less, we're subsidizing people that were using more, because our cost is, as you know, utility counts aren't subsidized by taxes. They are straight in and straight out. So whatever it costs us, we pass that on to residents. And so somebody pays, right?
Okay. No, makes sense. Thank you.
And I think Councillor Pat and then Councillor Judy.
I just want to thank administration for finally, after all these years, bringing it down to a consumption level. It just never since I lived here did it make sense to be having 14 cubes when we were never using that. Oh, sorry, one occasion we had gone over on a bill and I came in to discuss, and I believe Sharon took the order and suggested about the dye in the toilet tank and all that. Watch when you flush it. What was a leaky toilet? So, you know, it was solved, but that whole thing of a set rate, it's never seemed right. I really appreciate this for our residents. You use it, you're paying for it. You want to use more? That's your prerogative. You want to use less? That'll be your prerogative. I think that's a very smart way to do it.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Councillor Judy.
But as I'm looking at all these utility fees and the different size of meters, what does the average resident pay then? Tonight, for the specific fees for the meter, $19.64 a month?
Yes, that's the flat fee, the 5/8. Yeah.
Okay.
That's $19.64 a month
Yes.
for the meter.
For the meter,
No,
yeah.
that's for, no, not for the meter. That's for, so if you have a 5/8 meter, we're saying you're putting this much pressure on the system, so you're going to pay $19.64 for operation and maintenance of that system. If you have a larger meter, you're putting more pressure on the system, so you're going to pay a little bit more for a flat fee.
So this is more like a distribution cost then.
It's the cost to operate and maintenance the water distribution
That's right,
system.
distribution.
Yes.
Yeah.
Councillor Judy, did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, just so I know other towns are doing this, and yeah, I've talked to different ones when they've gone over on their bill and we talk about it and they said, yeah, I know. That's my prerogative and that's how much water I'm using because I do this, this, and this, and this, and that's what I want to do. Okay, right? You know, specifically when you're talking about people and budgets and all that kind of stuff, and they could save $20 by not doing things. That's the way they want to do it. That's the way they want to do it. So yeah, I agree with Pat. This is an excellent system that we pay for what we use. It'll be interesting to see what the bills come out. And that'll give us a true picture of what's happening. So nice, thanks, Patty, for all the work.
Thank you. Any other questions on that page? Can we move on?
I think Councillor
Councillor Dan
Scobell
has his hand up. Yep.
I mean, I think you guys are forgetting about us poor souls that have teenagers. Please have mercy. Please.
No mercy. No mercy.
Send him over to Pat's house.
They can come live with me.
Locks on the bathroom.
Put locks on the bathroom. So
Timers
Mr. Mayor,
on the shower. Yeah.
So Mr. Mayor, I did talk to other communities that I could find that had transitioned years ago. And the first year there'll be some bumps and bruises. And if we find out that we haven't calculated right, we're definitely going to bring it back to council. And this is our best guess based on history and pulling multiple water usage, and make sure that we put away enough for operation and maintenance.
Thank you very much. So we can move on to the next section.
Solid waste. I think collection. Prior we had, if you got a second cart, you got a half price. We've increased that to the full cost recovery. We want to encourage people to recycle, reuse, and having a second cart for almost nothing doesn't incur that. Plus the town was paying the difference. So we're changing that to full cost recovery. And GFL has increased their delivery costs from 50 to 100. And the refuse bins If you notice, that's 2-yard, 4-yard. So that would be front load, those big large bins that you see at commercial. Those have increased. I didn't write them all, but less than $1 on each one of those. And that's cost recovery to GFL as well.
Which bin size is a residential size? And then Councillor Wayne has a question.
None of those bins are residential, Mr. Mayor. Those are all commercial bins. Those big square bins that like what by the community hall and those sorts of bins.
Okay, so the residential one is the 2552.
Yeah, that's what every resident pays now. There's no increase. Only thing we've done is if you get a second cart, you're going to pay full price. You don't get a discount.
Okay, Councillor Wayne.
So if they want an extra cart, they're paying the $25.52 plus the $100 charge to deliver it.
Right, just the first time that they get the extra cart, right?
So they're charging $100. They're charging $100 to come out and give a cart.
Yeah, they used to charge 50.
Wow.
Yeah.
Will that be
Go
the
ahead,
same
Councillor.
if they're replacing a cart?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lecco, no. If the cart's damaged, there's no cost to the resident.
Okay, thank you.
Unless it's complete neglect.
Thank you.
Fair
Councillor
enough.
George,
Thank
you had something to add?
$100 is a lot of money for just to come out and put a cart on the street. I think that's something that should be negotiated back to our collectors. That should be a service in itself, not an extra charge towards the resident.
Mr. Mayor, I just would say that if you're driving out from Sherwood Park and back, I know my mileage would be at 58 cents a kilometer would be about $70. So
those carts should be available in our yard if needed at the discretion of our public works director.
So, Mr. Mayor, they're not our carts, but again, this doesn't happen very often. This is only charged for brand new build or because the residents, when they leave the carts there if it's just a change in ownership, right? If a house sells or is rented to somebody different, they don't come pick up the cart. So very rarely do you see this charge.
Thank
Something
you.
that should be discussed with them though.
Yeah, when we get to the new contract. Councillor Pat and then Councillor Wayne.
It looks like here administration was able to watch out for the seniors over 65s with rates.
Mm-hmm.
That's kudos to you
the
guys.
same. Yeah, that stayed the same.
Kudos.
Okay, Councillor Wayne.
On here, it says the recycle, the bin is $25.52 for solid waste, but $7.95 for recycle for the bin.
Recycling rates.
The
Additional.
residential curbside service includes one cart is $7.95. What's the replacement cost for a cart or the delivery? Like it says $7.95. Maybe I'm not reading this right.
Collection and disposal of the cart. I'll have to take that back. That's per unit per month. So I might have to put some more clarity around that definition. That could be for multi residential. I'll take that up. I'll get back to you guys on that.
Unit per month, yeah.
Because
Okay,
I have per unit per month. I just probably need some more definition around what that is referenced to.
Good question, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this section? Looks like you can move on to the next page, Patty.
Okay, parks. So as you know, next year we'll be going to an online booking system. So super excited about that. And the research that I've done, nobody does monthly, it's weekly. As you know, I've told council before, people leverage the monthly charge to pay the monthly, stay a week and get the cheaper rates. So it was an administrative nightmare. So I've eliminated the monthly charge and gone to a weekly charge, which is still a savings for anybody that's wanting to book our campgrounds. So a small increase, less than $4 per night for our campground to account for increased power costs. Councillor Lecco, did you have a question?
Just in regards to stuff that's further down, I was just going to wait for
Okay.
the Bruderheim stuff.
Mr. Mayor, and then the gazebo we added, we have had people come and ask us to close the gazebo for a private function. So this would just, people can still use it for free. There's no cost to use our gazebo. But if you book it, we'll make sure it's clean, we'll make sure it looks pretty, and we'll put up closed for private functions. So if somebody's getting married, some kids don't run their skateboard through the mill or something. People are still more than welcome to use the gazebo for free. It's just if they want it closed for a private function, and we'll ensure that it's clean.
Thank you.
Moving on to facilities.
Sorry, I have
Oh,
a question in
ag grounds?
regards.
Yeah.
You answered my question, gazebo, but the ball diamonds, if they're having a 2-day tournament, you're charging them $200.
That's correct.
Okay,
That didn't change. That didn't change from before.
Can there be a weekend rate or no? Would that be a consideration?
Absolutely, if council wants one.
I mean, not that it gets used a lot, but if there's a group that wants to do a weekend tournament, that's $200-300. Can there be a weekend rate of, I don't know, 150, 175 or whatever it is? But
I'll do some research, Councillor Alecko, and just kind of see what the people are using.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Pat, is there any setup costs for our parks folks for campgrounds? Like say in July, somebody phones up, I'm going to have the camp spot, whatever, for 2 weeks. Is there something on top of what our staff normally do to set up for the folks, or they just show up and hook up and that's it?
Mr. Mayor, they just show up. Yeah, we try to do routine maintenance at the campground when we see people pull out.
Yeah.
But other than that, that's it.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's any setup costs. Okay, thank you.
I have one more question.
Councillor George?
Yeah, the gazebo for private functions, you got $25 an hour. Couldn't you have a daily rate there too?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, I've never had a request for a daily rate, but we could. I would.
Because if you go by an hour and somebody wants it for the day, you're looking at $200.
We'll add that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
It will probably be the same price near.
Or maybe just a note, you have to negotiate with the CAO for
Bring chocolate, yes.
Yeah. So we move to the next.
Facilities, Mr. Mayor, we've added a town insurance fee. Our Director of Finance did a little research, and as you know, liability insurance is sometimes out of reach for a lot of people, and we are able to offer that through the town. So we've just added that as a new item, and it would of course depend on the event, so we can't actually put a cost there. We do lose a lot of keys for people that rent our facilities, so we're asking for a deposit of $50. This is new. We've had a lot of people ask to park at the arena. So we've added a $10 a day per unit. Just so we can do cleanup after, because as you can imagine, people, and this would be for people that rent the hall, they don't want to walk all the way up to the campground. They would rather just park there, which is fantastic, right? And so there is a cost to make sure it's clean, and we haul some extra garbage cans there. We have taken a porta potty there and rented it sometimes depending on the number of people. So basically just a cost recovery.
Can that say per unit on there?
Yeah,
Otherwise,
I have to add that. Yeah, I know it. That's one of my notes. Thank you for noticing that. Yeah, we have to add per unit there.
Perfect, thank you.
I have a question.
Mr. George?
You have a bit of a discrepancy here. You got $10 for non-service at the arena and $18 at the campsite. Where's the logistics?
So, Mr. Mayor, I would think that the campsite's a little nicer when you have grass. If that's for the tenting section of our campground. We wouldn't be looking at long-term rentals at the arena parking lot. It is just park there for functions. It's quite common for facilities. Usually you park in the parking lot of the facility at an event and you pay for that, but we don't have a parking lot adjacent to our community hall. So we put people at the arena parking lot.
But this is a service.
No, there's no service there. They would just park on the gravel.
I mean, it's a service that we're putting out there, and it should be compatible to what we have elsewhere in pricing. It's a convenience for those who want to come and park there when we do have the facility in hand.
So, sorry, Mr. Mayor, through council, are you saying that we should raise that rate? Is that what you're?
That rate should be the same as the campground.
So, Mr. Mayor, I would just say that usually the guest, the person of the guest has rented the hall as well. So that would be an added cost, but we can increase it if you council want. But it is the regional average for parking in people's parking lots that are adjacent to community halls.
Like you said, we had to bring in sometimes out porta potties, and we had to do extra cleanup and stuff like that. The price, I don't think would cover our cost at $10.
So were you putting in porta potties? No.
No,
but
Mr. Mayor. I think Councillor Filardo has a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. Just making
Over
sure
the
Jordan.
years, I used to camp considerably, and I went to a lot of functions where there are community buildings, halls and stuff like that. Normally they don't charge anything. Most of the people who camp, and I'd say 95% of the people, clean up their own site at the end of it. They don't need a porta potty because they got facilities in their units. So I think it's great. $10 even, I even think it's too much, but we can make $10 because they are renting our facilities. At the same time, they're using our town, supporting our business in the community and everything else. I think it's a great idea to let them park there.
Yeah, if it's the average in the area, then I don't see a problem with that. Councillor Pat.
Wayne, I think Wayne was first.
Okay,
Don't
Councillor
matter.
Wayne.
Don't matter. Okay. Again, you mentioned porta potties. If there was 10 people staying there, would we front the cost of that, or would they be responsible for that cost?
No, they would be responsible, but we make the arrangements, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So to eliminate some of I know there are some questions in regards to cleaning up after and whatnot. What if there was a deposit of $100, and if it's clean, they get it back? If that would be sufficient to cover the worry of leaving a mess behind.
So if the hall, if the person that rented the hall wanted to also rent the parking lot, we would ask for an additional deposit, is what you're thinking, Councillor Lecco?
Yeah, or yeah, if they're renting the hall, then maybe that's part of. So if the parking lot isn't kept clean, well, then they don't get their deposit back or a portion of, right?
Okay.
So that makes sense. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Wayne. Councillor Pat.
Well, I was just going to say that the $18 at the campground, because they have a view of the lake. Not at Mashmeyer's. You don't get the lake from there.
So,
That's
Mr.
it.
Mayor, could I get some direction from council? Do they want it to be free, deposit, higher, lower? I'm just a little bit all over the place here right now.
So for myself, like I said, if that's what the regional average is, and $10, I'm fine with that. What does the rest of council think? Councillor Wayne?
Yeah, I think if that's the way it is, and then that's the way it is. But I think there should be something in the writing saying if they're renting that or using the arena, their damage deposit or their deposit goes towards that as well.
Yeah, others on council, so we get a consensus, and Councillor Judy.
Yeah, you got to be careful. If we end up, I mean, they're just parking there overnight because they don't want to drink and drive, which is great. If they leave some money in our town, $10, that's good enough. They'll probably, stop at the local restaurant. If you get too complicated into deposit and all that kind of stuff and numbers, and they're going to try and have to figure that out, it's a bookkeeping nightmare, right? So just leave it at the $10 and life goes on. My opinion.
Well, I'm just saying, just use their deposit that they have already existing. If there's a mess, to use that towards it.
Thank you, Councillor Pat.
I would say stay with the $10. It's more of a token than anything else, and if they're going to do some shopping around town, excellent. And if they're not driving when they shouldn't be, even better.
Thank you. Councillor Dan? Yep, $10. And Councillor Len, I think you were okay with the $10.
I would go free personally.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, they're coming to the community and they're not gonna pay you the 10. I'm gonna tell you, I've done this many times over the years. You would never collect the $10. I go to the wedding, I go dance all night and drink. I'll be full out in the morning. You'll never see my $10 anyways.
Well, the consensus is stay with the $10. The good thing about it is it gives people the option. Otherwise, they might just park on the street and you would not even know that they're there, right? So I think that's sufficient direction, CAO, Pat?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes. Okay, where were we? Okay, overcloud. Okay, next was the hometown tier room. We've had an increase in cleaning costs for upstairs and utilities, so we've increased it from 65 to 75 for nonprofits per day. Hometown hero rooms for other organizations increased from 120 to 150, and this is again for cleaning and utilities. We've also had requests to use the kitchen, only the kitchen or kitchen in addition to the whole top floor. So we've added that as a $45 charge for nonprofit, and again, that's just for the extra utility and cleaning costs. And for other groups, $90. Any questions about that? Okay. Planning and development is probably more complicated than utilities, actually. We should give Sherry a raise, actually, is what I've decided. So these haven't been touched in years. They were quite encompassing and probably a little bit too much for our size of community. So we've done a lot of research regionally and come up with these on the basis of our planning and development contractors and regional recommendations, these costs. So we've increased single dwelling and modular home, duplex and semi-detached 100 to 125. All our planning and development, we have lawyers, engineers, and planners that we contract for these services. So we're hoping to recoup these costs by passing those on to the people that are asking for the development. Multi-attached dwelling, 3 units or more, we've reduced that from 200 to 150 to reflect our costs. We've added a show home, $150. Somebody wants to put a secondary suite, $190. Variances, so if somebody needs variance, we've increased that from $65 to $250 to encompass all of the things that need to be done to notify neighbors, advertise, everything else to ensure that the variances are okay. Resubmission of plans after we've already approved a development and then somebody goes, oops, actually I forgot about this, or this isn't going to work. So we have to resubmit those plans to our engineer for review. So those costs are being passed on to the developer as well. Request for a development permit time extension. Again, if there's an extension that goes to our contracted services and they in turn charge us. We've increased accessory development, fences, decks, above ground pools from $30 to $50 because that's the cost to notify neighbors and advertise those developments. We've added stripping and grading, $150. Those permits, demolition permits, second access. None of those were reflected in our old fees and charges. Any questions about those or anything else in the residential development permit fees? I know it's stimulating stuff, but.
Councilor Judy.
It says your major home occupation requires notification and then minor home occupation. What's that?
I will let Mrs. Cote address that. That's an existing in our old fees and charges, yeah.
Hello, Judy. In our land use bylaw, there is a section that is for major home occupations, and there is a section for minor home occupations. They're very different, and the requirements in our land use bylaw are different. So if somebody were to apply for a development permit because they decided that they're going to, for example, run a day home out of their residence, that's considered a major. That means there's lots of traffic going back and forth to their homes. So that's a major. And then a minor would be something like yourself where you run a home business out of your home, but you have no traffic coming into your home.
Okay.
Does that clarify?
Yeah. It just was, it's there and I'm going, okay, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Clear. Thank you then.
There's nothing weird about this document. Sorry. Okay. Commercial industrial developments. We've added discretionary use only, no construction required. We've increased that from 200 to 250. We've added resubmission of plans after approval. Again, same philosophy, $100. Request for development permit time extension, 150. Stripping and grading, 300. Demolition, 200. Change of use, 150. New occupancy, 100. Increase the accessory building from 103 to 105. We've added RV storage. We never had that before. We've had some inquiries about that. Sidewalk cafe, we've had some inquiries about that. We've added that to our permits. And annual seasonal development. So if you look in the old fees and charges, there was a huge list of all the possible things that could be seasonal. We've just lumped those all together by replacing all the detailed subscriptions and just put $100. So that would be your fruit. Councillor Schiller. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Patty, finish.
That's it for that section.
Go ahead, Councillor Judy.
So yeah, looking at all these, anywhere along the line, do you have an occupancy permit allowed anywhere along the line for anything like this, or we're not going that far with development?
So Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Schuler, occupancy for the annual seasonal developments or just occupancy in general?
So if they build a house, right, when are all the other, usually an occupancy permit is when all those other permits have been approved by town or the contracted services that we hire to do those things, like electricity, gas, all that. And then they get an occupancy permit proving that now the home can be occupied. And what that changes is so that people aren't living in a house that's unsafe, right?
So we have it on the commercial, but Sherry, did you want to address the residential, how that works with inspections group?
So right now, Judy, through our permitting process through inspections group, we get a final inspection on any of the development permits that we issue, where the building inspector goes out and says all the electrical, all the plumbing, all the gas, all those things have been taken care of, and they close what they do. They send us a closed permit, which says that everything that was done in that development process meets requirements. We are in the process right now. We had a safety codes audit here about 2 months ago. And one of the things that we have to address is QMP changes, where I'm updating that right now. One of the things that we're probably going to be doing is adding occupancy permit inspections to that QMP, and then we would set that up. That'll be an extra cost. And when we do that, that will have to come back through fees and charges again, because we're going to have to pay additional to have additional inspections and to get that done.
Okay, second question following that now, are you allowing permits to people that live in duplexes and multi-use buildings to finish their basements, or that are not run by a professional? So like the homeowner buying or getting his own permit and doing his work himself, or it has to be done by a professional?
So through our permitting process and through the safety codes audit process that we've done, and we've had a lot of discussions around this, a homeowner can apply for their own permits. It still gets inspected by inspection groups, by the inspectors, and we still get reports back reporting on what was actually done in that building in that time by that homeowner.
Okay, so I guess my question is there any liability to the town on that? Because I've noticed other towns have gone to anything that is like duplexes or, you know, townhouses. If they're developing, it has to be done. The homeowner can no longer, unless he's a, you know, a Red Seal, whatever, has its own company, can no longer pull home permits.
Well, that's good. Yeah. So Judy, that's really good information, because we're going through that process right now of rewriting our QMP. That's one of those things I'll ask questions about and bring back to council anything I found out about it. At this point, there's been no flags raised through our safety codes audit. It was not identified as a problem. Okay. They identified 2 minor things on the inspections group permitting process. There was a couple of places they wanted them to do some tweaking. That was the only thing that was identified in that when we went through everything, but I will check further into it.
And then just maybe off subject a little bit. So in the past, development permit was pulled and everything, but the house ended up being faced the wrong way. So now its address is wrong. According to the permit that was pulled, the address would be right. But when they finished developing the house, they turned it. Does that person have to apply for a new permit to get her address right, or their address right? Or is that something the town will help fix for them? Because just because it's given the address, if the house is changed, it's not the right address when it comes back to 911. So something, I don't know, like would there be a charge for that? I guess that's the question.
In those situations, that's an address that we've assigned, so that is a town problem to fix.
Okay.
And I do know there are, I think, 3 addresses in town right now that we're aware of that we're working on.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. And it won't be a charge back to the client then because it's a town problem.
No, it would be our cost.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for the questions. We're okay to move on to next section then?
Other development fees, Mr. Mayor. So one of the changes was the telecommunication tower request for letter of concurrence. We didn't have that written up properly in our fees and charges. So we're not approving the towers. We're just saying we're okay with them extending that in our community. They need that for going to federal government. So, and we've lowered it from 1,500 to 500. That's the regional average. Reinspection fee for securities release for development permit. That's a new item. Contractor course of $130 for our engineer to inspect, or inspections group. Encroachment agreements, we've defined them by size now. So depending on the size of the encroachment, of course, the costs go up for our contracted services. Resubmission of revisions prior to registration, $105. Caveat and other legal instrument review update, $105. File certs residential, we've decreased that from 150 to 100 to reflect administration costs. File search for industrial, commercial, and institutional, we've added that as a new item because of course that takes a little more work, $175. Notification advertising, so anywhere from $2 to $420. We've defined them depending on what we have to do. So $2 is notifying another resident adjacent, $420 would be a half-page ad in the newspaper. So just define that instead of it, before it was an advertising flat fee, now we've actually going to itemize exactly what we have to do. Like Sherry was mentioning, if it's a minor or major, the advertising would be different. For example, in a neighborhood. Outline plan review, we've lowered from 5,700 to 1,100 to reflect the actual cost to Bruderheim for those. Lot consolidations, so it's actually surprising how many people in town are buying lots beside them and consolidating the lots, and this enables them to put larger garages because as you know, you can only develop so much percentage of your lot. So we've had like a few of those requests, so we've added that as a charge as well now. Any questions on any of those items? Okay, moving to bylaw and statutory plans. If you want an amendment to the municipal development plan, there's a $1,000 charge. That's for the contractor, the admin, the advertising, public hearings. Statutory plan amendment, $1,000 as well. If you want a land use bylaw amendment, we've lowered that from 2,700 to 1,000 to be more in line with the cost. A road closure, that's a new item. So if somebody wanted to close a road, that would be $1,000. Any questions on that?
Is there a timeline on a road closure? Like what kind of a?
That would be a permanent road closure, Mr. Mayor.
Ah, okay.
So for the hotel would be example. Do you remember the modifications there that we had to do? We had to swing the road to the right and no longer went all the way through. Mm-hmm. So happens with consolidation of lots as well, right? So subdivision fees, endorsement of a plan or subdivision. We've lowered that from $2,000 to $150 because we can do that in-house. Development agreement, we've increased that from 100 to 500 to account for contractor costs. Development agreement amendment, we've decreased that from 300 to 250, be more in line with contractor costs. Contravention of a land use, these are new now. So if somebody goes ahead and develops without a permit, we're instituting that you develop commencing prior to issuance of a development permit will be twice the original permit fee. A violation ticket to an individual would be 100. Violation ticket to a corporation would be $250.
Councilor Judy.
Sorry, got to take myself off mute to ask. So they've built a new house and now they developed their basement, never pulled a permit. So now they're coming back to get the permits. It's only twice the original fee.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Shirley.
Very generous because most are charging 3.
Yeah.
So, okay, thanks.
Yeah, as a new item, we aired on the side of low. Mr. Mayor, moving on to protective services, we've lowered the over limit dog permit from $62 to $25 annual fee, and we are reviewing the animal control bylaw that we currently have, so that may see some changes as well in the future.
Okay.
And that's all for changes, Mr. Mayor. Was there any other questions from council?
I would just like to add that this is a huge piece of work. Everybody in administration had a hand in this, and very thankful that you were able to get all this work done and pull it all together for us. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Mr. Mayor.
So now we are looking for a motion to approve this first. What is it? The first reading? No. Yeah, first
Yes,
reading.
Mr. Mayor. Yeah.
So will someone be willing to, Councillor Judy?
I can make that motion that town council give first reading to bylaw 18/2020, a bylaw to impose fees and charges for 2021.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Now, obviously, as CAO Pat mentioned, there's a few things that are going to be coming back into some tweaks, and we'll see that in the second reading, right?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Is there any other comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion?
And Mr. Mayor, if anybody sees any administrative type changes that we might have missed, feel free to reach out.
Thank you. So I'll call for a vote then. Anyone opposed to this motion? Not hearing any, then the motion's carried. So we're done with the 8.5. And again, thanks very much to administration. Huge piece of work. Thank you. Council committee reports. We're looking for a motion to receive the council committee reports as information. Someone be willing to make that motion? Councillor Pat.
I move that council receive the council committee reports as information.
Thank you for that. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? Haven't heard none. We'll call for a vote then. Anyone opposed to that motion? And the motion's carried. And looking for a motion to receive the mayor report as information.
I can do that.
Thank you, Councillor Dan.
Yeah, I move that council receive the mayor report as information.
Thank you for that. Any comments, questions, or concerns with the mayor report? Just a couple things that didn't make it onto this sheet when at the time of printing. December 3rd is a round table with the government online. Going to be hopefully able to catch a portion of that tomorrow. December 15th, there's a Northeast and John S. Patuque Water Commission meeting of the two smaller committees minus the managers to iron out some differences and have a chat. And then December 4th, this Friday, is an AIHA meeting online. I'll be attending that meeting. I just wanted to bring that forward for your information. If there's no other comments, questions, or concerns with the motion, and I'll call for a vote. Anyone opposed to the motion? And the motion's carried. Thank you. CAO report. Would somebody be willing to make a motion to Councillor Wayne?
Make a motion that council receive the chief administrative officer report as information.
Thank you for that. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? Anyone have any questions for CAO Pat on her report? Looks like some people are still reading. I just wanted to gently inquire about the outdoor arena. We get a lot of folks, a huge interest, especially this year, I think because of COVID and people want to be able to do things outside. And just wondering how we're making out with the outdoor arena.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did make one attempt, I believe it was a week or so ago, at starting to flood. And of course, with the above seasonal temperatures, we're not able to get a good hard surface. So as you can see, the weather forecast next week is above normal temperatures again. So we're hoping for the second week in December, starting the week of the 14th, start flooding again.
Okay, and further to that, and just a comment, I know that there's folks in the, like I said, this year it seems to be a bigger focus than ever on the outdoor rink, and I think some of it is due to COVID and people wanting to be able to do stuff outside. And I know that there's folks that would be willing to help volunteer to help with the arena. I don't know if that's a possibility to look at in the future, or just wanted to throw that out there as information. Anyone else have any comments, questions, or concerns with the CAO report? Okay, call for a vote then. Anyone opposed to the motion? And the motion's carried. And at this point is correspondence and information items, and then we got closed session. So once I get through the correspondence, maybe we want to have a comfort break. Just putting that idea out there. So I'm just going to quickly go through I have a little bit of correspondence. We did get a letter from the Bruderheim Ag Society from Kathy Haliski, the president. On behalf of the Bruderheim Agriculture Society board members, I would like to thank you for your generous donation of $1,000 to our organization for the purchase of a computer and software during these times of COVID. So they are recognizing our council, and there's a very nice letter. Just wanted to let you folks know that. And we got a thank you from the Bruderheim Expressions Dance Group, Lori Graham, and got a nice letter and a thank you from them for the donation for the dance group. So wanted to make sure that council realizes that these kind of things make a big impact in our little community. And then I don't know where this came from, but someone put this newspaper in my mailbox, Epoch's Times, and I'm not sure, I haven't had a chance to go through it. Maybe there's something relevant in there that someone wanted to draw my attention to. I don't know, but that was in my mailbox. And the last thing that I have, just have to bring it up on the computer here. So if you bear with me for a second, it involves the John S. Patuque Water Commission. There is a line outage coming soon. And I just want to read that out to you folks so that you're aware of it. So this is from the John S. Patuque Water Commission. There's going to be a proposed water line shutdown for Epcor line repairs on December 7th. And they're saying that the work will commence 8 a.m. on December 7th, and the shutdown could take anywhere between 2.5 to 5 days. The Epcor, like I said, is doing some work, and they will be asking that all member municipality reservoirs are full, and they'll be asking if people can, they can restrict their water use during that time. There'll be official notice, but I just wanted to make sure our council was aware of that. And the last thing about the John S. Patuque, Epcor has announced an increase in the water. Did you see that information, CEO Pat?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Yeah, I believe it was 6 cents a cube. Correct me if I'm wrong, and that'll probably be a flow through. We haven't heard exactly yet. So I just wanted to make sure that council was aware of that. And that's all that I have for correspondence. Was there anything else from council for correspondence? Nope. Okay, so that's for correspondence. Do we want a comfort break, or are we just going to go into the closed session next? What does council prefer? Councilor George?
Yeah, I'd like a comfort break.
So you'd be making that motion, Councilor
Yes.
George?
I make a motion, we take a 5-minute comfort break.
Okay, any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? Okay, anyone opposed to that motion? And the motion's carried, so we'll have a 5-minute comfort break, and we'll be back at, what is that, 8:52? Thanks, everybody.
Sherry,
Yes.
did Carl not get the letter from the thank you card from the seniors?
Yes, he did.
I don't believe it was mentioned.
It was scanned to all of council.
I was just wondering because it was not mentioned with the others that received.
Okay. Well, just remind him, Pat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, Pat, I will.
Okay, okay.
Just because you're on the seniors group as well.
Just because, yeah. Is Wayne-
Sherry, do
is-
you still have that card somewhere?
It's in the office, Pat.
I'll come grab it.
Okay.
I guess I gotta go pee here.
So many things on my
So you all ready for Christmas, Len?
Yeah, we didn't, we put a tree 3 feet high up this year.
You did what, sorry?
Put a 3-foot tree up.
Oh,
That's it.
okay.
Yeah, last year we tried a real tree,
Mhm.
and we got tree poisoning in the house.
What, some kind of infection?
Oh,
from
it's
it, or-
nasty. We had to buy special fans and everything to clean the place up. And I looked it up on the internet. I never heard of it before, but we got it.
What kind of tree was it? A pine tree or?
Yeah, it was we got it from Home Depot.
Mhm.
But the problem was, you don't know how long it's been sitting, eh? When I took that out, it was like a dust storm. It was unbelievable. And we took it
leaves
out
were
the
all
day
falling?
after Christmas.
Wow.
So I mean,
How
it
much did
was-
they charge you for that tree?
Well, we just bought a cheap one. I think it was only $35 at Home Depot. You know, they go up, depends the size and stuff. But so we thought, okay, we have other trees, so this year we're just going to go with the small tree and the heck with it. We because of the COVID, we have nobody coming special for Christmas and nothing like that. So we feel we'll just have ourselves.
Mhm.
You know, no family and nothing, so it's just fine.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's going to be quite a different Christmas.
Well,
Did you watch the news today about the UK and?
Yes,
There-
I did. That's very promising. But you know, the timelines, the reality is, you know it and I know it, that by the time we ever get this under control, it'll probably take 2 years. Because I followed all those, like, you know, the senior or the people who take the vaccination now for the cold and flu. Did you know it's only 38% of the Albertans take that?
It was higher this year than ever before.